This demonstration shows how the drawing of a space in one-point perspective can be done based on our direct observation. Our earlier photo exercise gave us the conceptual understanding of the approaches, but this time you will have to utilize your observation and sighting skills. Let's start with comparing or imagining our hallway as the rectangular box. The imaginary conceptual rectangle that represents the back wall is where we want to start, which is framed by the end of the ceiling at the top and the end of the floor at the base, and first column you see on the right, right next to the exit sign, and the corner of the railing. Even though it is only halfway up, we will consider that as the other side of the back wall. I also visualize the lines that connect all the columns at the top and the base, standing for the vanishing corners as these columns are running away from us. Even the eave line at the edge of the ceiling, as well as the concrete base of the railings on the floor, would stand for the other side of the vanishing corners. General shape of the hallway resembles the basic box shape, but as you observe carefully, any architectural space would have various features that accommodate human comfort and convenience, such as the eave line extends out to block the harsh sunlight or rainfalls, and the first column extends slightly above and below the top and the base of the rectangle, as there is a space for stairs behind as you turn around the first column. I would draw in those features for a realistic representation of the space. Once I draw the rectangle that represents the back wall with the correct proportion of the width to height, here I extend out the top of the rectangle to show the eave line, and the vertical side of the rectangle to show the top and the base of first column next to the exit sign. Then my two straight edges come in handy. As we have done last week at the photo exercises, I put these two straight edges together like a protractor to measure the angles or tilts of the vanishing corner lines. Remember to use your imaginary picture plane, a glass window right at your arm's length. While I measure all four corners, I would like to keep one of my foot planted on the floor so that I stay on the same spot as much as possible. I note that some of you are struggling to draw straight lines. Well, I also have a hard time making lines straight. So what I like to use is a technique called aim and drag. I lay my vine charcoal or black Conti crayon flat on the paper towards the measure the angle and drag, and the line comes out rather straight. Isn't that cool? Now that I got all four corners, I extend my vanishing lines to find a vanishing point at this point. This is a good time to stop and check whether the location of your vanishing point represents the line of sight, my location in the space. Considering that my eye level is at the height of the base of the window and I'm standing closer to the railings from the center of the hallway, my vanishing point here is pretty close to the accurate point that represents my line of sight. It doesn't look too bad. We are using vine charcoal as our measuring as well as drawing tool, which is much too thick for a fine and accurate lines or mechanical accuracy. Mistakes and inaccurate angles are rather expected. So if your vanishing point doesn't match your line of sight, do not feel frustrated. Just go back and resight, remeasure, and redraw, or make adjustments as many times as you need to. Once I'm convinced that my vanishing point and eye level in my drawing looks reasonable, I start drawing other horizontal elements that are running away from us, as I know that these lines would converge to the same vanishing point. I do not have to sight to measure the angles for all other elements such as top, middle, or base of the railing bars, or base of the windows, and etc. I just use the vanishing point. I sight and measure and draw the details in proportion. The width of the rectangle is used as a unit of measurement. Moving 1 unit to the right, I see the front of the fourth column is located, and the depth of the fourth column measures about 1/2 of the unit. So I draw the column accordingly based on my measurement. I also would sight and measure the space between the fourth and the third column based on the unit measurements, so that I can find a place for the third column. This is a good way to combine what you know and what you see. When we sighted the vanishing lines, remember we used the imaginary lines that connected all the tops of all the columns and the bases of all the columns. So now we use these two vanishing lines as the heights for the columns in our drawing. When you need to place a column in the middle of the two in perspective, your high school geometry becomes useful. Say, I want to put a line in the middle in the rectangle without measuring. What I would do is to draw two diagonal lines from opposite corners. Then the intersection would represent the middle. And you can simply place the center line over that intersection. When the rectangle is seen in perspective, it still works. So I would draw two diagonal lines from opposite corners here and place the second column between the third and the first one. Connect the back of one of the columns to the vanishing point, and this vanishing line would represent the top and the base of the wall between columns. Now let's work on the railings on the left-hand side of the hallway. In order to draw in the railing bars, I can use the unit of measurements as I have done to draw columns earlier. But this time, I can also use the columns that are already drawn on my drawing as reference. That way I can spatially balance the columns and the railing bars better in this hallway space. Draw a line from the base of the fourth column across the hallway floor, and I count backwards. I count about 12 railing bars. At the middle of the space, I know the first 6 bars fit in the first half, which will be very densely fit in that really tiny small area in the drawing. And the other 6 bars fit in the next half that is closer to us. The individual bars in this space look quite dense and may not need to be individually drawn, but the area that is closer to us, the bars would be visually spaced out and probably need more definitions for individual details when you draw them in. Now that you already have drawn and established the hallway space, you would be able to find more ways to space out the bars and other elements you see in the hallway space and in your drawing. I want you to take your time to sight and figure out to place all the architectural elements in your drawing. Reminding yourself of the photo exercise that we have done last week will be a great idea too. Well, have fun, keep developing and drawing the space.